My name is Jacob Crow, and welcome to the Crow's Perch, where we discuss tabletop role-playing games and read tabletop gaming stories. Today we're going to be going through an RPG horror story, where we have a DM whose girlfriend and players slowly begin to devolve into a group of power-hungry munchkins, eventually leading to the end of their game and their relationship. So without further ado, let's gather up a murder and get right into this story. So I got here from Crit Crab.
Oh yes, a fellow man of culture, I see.
And this has been on my mind for several years now, and just to get the frustration out, I decided to write on this. In this long story, I know I could have handled it better as a DM, and I should have, but I wanted them to enjoy a game that I've long since enjoyed. Even more so because one of my players was my girlfriend at the time, and I wanted her and I to bond more. Little did I know, it was going to drive us apart even more. So we start by me dating this one girl. Met her at an anime convention, and I knew right off the bat that she wasn't the most stable, but that's way off topic. And there's a lot more underlying issues that don't belong in this subreddit. One night hanging out with her friends, most of which I didn't like either through drug addiction, alcohol addiction, or just plain not being good people, one of her friends bring up the topic of tattoos, and they ask me about my forearm tattoo, which is a set of dice that go down my arm. I tell them that it's from D&D and explain to them what it's about. Several of them just kind of brush it off and continue, but a couple of them come to me later and tell me that they've been interested but never played. At the time, I've been playing since 4E, and at this point, 5th edition is out, and that's what I explained to them. Then, in that drunken night, some of them asked me if we could give it a try. So that's where this long story begins. The characters of this story include DM, myself, Lil Nomi, GF, Hagrid, call him Bill, Baldrax, call him Gajiro, and Barbados, call him Marine. So most of who talked about playing that night didn't actually want to play, just my GF and Bill. The other two, Gajiro and Marine, we added later. They were friends of my girlfriend and nice enough guys, and it turns out they actually became really good players. This story doesn't really revolve around them. They were idle RPG players. They tried to get into the story, do things their characters would do, and went along with whatever was going on because they wanted to be a part of the world. Also, the events I'm about to share didn't all happen back to back. I say the shortest amount of time was about 5 sessions to the next event, and between them was a lot of combat. We started on Horde of the Dragon Queen. I knew it was a new player-friendly campaign, and my GF was really into Game of Thrones at the time, so she wanted to give it a shot as well. We got my girlfriend who rolled up a halfling rogue, Bill who did a human wizard and wanted it to be all fire and ice, Gajiro, a dragonborn barbarian, and Marine, a dragonborn fighter. Right off the bat, I noticed issues with my girlfriend. When combat came, she made comments the entire time of how she wasn't doing the biggest damage of the group. I simply tell her that while she's a rogue with only a dagger and, well, level 1, you weren't going to be doing really big damage yet. That she was sorta fine with. But when I told her then that with a fighter, barbarian, and a wizard beside you, that you'll probably be doing the least amount of damage out of the whole group come later levels, then she wasn't really pleased. She made a couple comments about killing off her character already before they even reached level 2, and I asked her to give it a little bit, as rogues are really good at not getting hit and doing things outside of combat. She still wasn't happy, but she kept going. Now comes time for the activity. They find a cave that was spilling magic out of it that Bill couldn't ignore. They go over and notice a giant chessboard with a time wizard there, whose name is just in time. Bless you, OP. It was a little Harry Potter style chess game where they were all pieces that could only move on their turn. Each piece had an AC, so you couldn't take it out unless you rolled high enough, and taking the king meant victory. Marine was excited. He played chess and knew the rules. Gajiro didn't know chess, but he still tried his best. As for GF and Bill, however, they didn't want any part of this. They saw this as a brain challenge and basically killed their piece early and sat on their phones. Oh, come on, guys. Only coming back in when Marine basically soloed the whole thing and won. I was even more upset as I had gone outside of the book and tried something that they simply ignored because it wasn't combat. Now, to the magic items they won. Before you say anything, I no longer do this. For anyone, the magic items I gave were way too strong for their level, and honestly strong for any high-level characters. First, Gajiro the Barbarian, well, he got the Horn of Valhalla of the highest Tear, and Wave, a sentient trident that worked with his character because he already worshipped a sea god. Marine the fighter got the defender sword, and the damn Black Razor, another sentient weapon, a longsword. What could possibly go wrong? I gave these items because in-game they were brothers, and the bond/rivalry between the two weapons I had found interesting. Bill the Wizard got a fireball necklace and the Rod of Lordly Might. This one was on me, as I read half of the item, saw it turned into a flame blade, and only noticed I made the mistake when I explained to him what the item did. Next is GF. She got a cloak that basically let her cast Disguise Self when she wanted to, 8 times a day, and a lockpick that never broke and had an amazing mod, and Boots of Spider Climb. In my head, I thought she could do more rogue things and be sneaky and be a really good party player. You know, like most rogues. Boy, was I wrong. She immediately made a comment of how they got weapons and she didn't, and that these items were useless actually. Then she said the wizard's name was terrible. Boy, if you don't show some respect for just in time, I swear to, I already felt bad that they didn't like this encounter, and now she didn't like the items, and it made me feel even worse. So I ended the session there and played another day. Outside of the game, she explains again how she thought it was unfair she wasn't doing the biggest damage, and I still try to calm her down by telling her that now with these items, she'll basically never get hit and be able to sneak everywhere, but she wasn't having it. To add to that, I almost never targeted her in game. Once again, yeah, that's on me. And that Gajiro and Marine were such good tanks that GF and Bill didn't really worry about getting hit. Well, 2 sessions from then, they make it to a castle to find the cult. I made the worst possible decision I could have ever made by throwing into this castle the terrible, yet amazing,
the game ending and game breaking, the ever so feared
Deck of many things.
I thought this way, it was no longer up to me. They got good things, and they wouldn't be mad at me. Flock, was I wrong again. Not wanting to just, kill their characters, I took out the 2 cards that just wiped them out. They drew from the deck, and got a good card. I think it was the one that gave them gold. GF made another comment of how she wants this deck to reset every day, so that they can keep drawing from it, and once again, I made the mistake of allowing it. They ended up drawing really good cards most of the time. Bill pulled the card that destroyed all of his magic items and was upset, but eventually the party threw him the fireball necklace later, as he really liked it, but the rod wasn't coming back. They eventually tried to get smart and started taking off all of their magic items before pulling from the deck each time. Gajiro and Bill ended up with keeps of their own that they decided to combine into a fortress-like thing that they still had to clear out in order to keep. They make it to the end of Hot Dog, Horde of the Dragon Queen, not Hot Dog. All of them still alive, and GF commenting literally every single session that a rogue didn't have the biggest duck in the group. She would go out of her way to fight enemies herself to feel powerful, sleep with NPCs just to kill them in their sleep, and split with the party to start combat. In this case, I really did try my best to spoon-feed her encounters that a sneaky rogue would be able to excel at, but she didn't want any part in those that weren't combat. Now, post-Hot Dog, now I'm imagining every single dragon cult in the land just being a series of deranged hot dog dealers. She bears a scale of every condiment you should put on your hot dog. Our Lord and Master Tiamat, relish in her glory. They go and try to take their keep. This keep basically had 2 large towers that each player would be in charge of, and a central area in which they would join up. Each one, they had to overcome a challenge. The barbarian side did mostly have combat, as I felt that fit in with barbarians. The wizard side, however, was filled with puzzles and riddles that they had to figure out before unlocking and defeating the boss monster in the central room. GF and Bill hated literally every single encounter in Bill's side of the keep. Several floors with escape room-like puzzles and a hard riddle at the end. I wasn't the best at coming up with these, so I looked up online and got some puzzles that I knew they didn't know. Well, after about a whole 1 try, GF and Bill are on their phones looking up the answer, while Gajiro and Marine are trying so hard to figure this out. They came up with ways to throw in test dummies so they wouldn't die, and they spent nearly 10 minutes before GF just shouted, "This is the stupidest thing ever! We gotta do this," and then shows her phone to the rest of the party. Nobody's gonna think to do this. GF and Bill found the answer online and unlocked the boss room. Going back down the tower, Bill said he didn't want this keep if it was just filled with puzzles. I just told him he could make it however he wanted. And right before the boss fight, GF and Bill said, well, this better not be another puzzle, while I already made hints that this was a beholder's lair. We didn't get that far into Rise of Tiamat, as after the whole thing, I really wasn't feeling like hearing about how all my work was useless. Marine eventually went off to the Marines, and Gijiro moved, so there's that too. Even before then, they kinda checked out. Gijiro said to me that he liked the campaign, but he really wasn't liking playing with GF and Bill, which, honestly, I can understand. Later, Bill wanted to try to start a campaign of his own, which went a whole 1 session, as I made a fighter named Belmont and spoke in third person. I was going to be a pure tank for the party, and all of my skills were going to be ways to block damage for everyone. Neither Bill nor GF liked my character, didn't like my backstory on hating fish, and didn't like my third person speaking as they never really did roleplay. Truly only spoke third person maybe 3 times. One session I go down 3 times, as the last time GF just walks from my character saying, yeah, let him die. Didn't even ask to play that again, nor do I think they tried to play it again. The third time we started Tomb of Annihilation, and the same problems came up. GF and Bill wanted to be super strong, super early, and I didn't let them this time. The other 2 we brought in, GF and Bill kind of roped into their mindset as well. That went on for about 10 sessions before I just couldn't take it anymore. The final straw came when GF found out I was making my own campaign and honestly never planned to tell her. I was really just writing it in my own free time and maybe I could run it someday. Well, she found out and asked to play it. It was about a quarter of the way done and I said I could continue as they played. I agreed and we started with the same 4 as Tomb of Annihilation. They literally hated the starting session. It was a murder mystery. They had to figure out who committed the murder, what secrets this mansion held, and take the blame off themselves. They turned it into a bloodbath as they killed anyone who they thought was lying, never searched the house, and never found the bodies in the rooms they were in. We ended it there and got nothing done. GF and Bill said they hated the whole thing and didn't think I knew how to write a good story. I stopped playing and writing my campaign after that. Since then, GF and I clearly broke up. There were a lot of other problems we had, and it really flocked with me. I moved fairly close to Gijiro and another anime convention friend, and they wanted to start a campaign with me. At first I declined, as it just brought back way too many sour memories. Gijiro, like the absolute bro that he is, helped me through that really rough year of my life, and I eventually started Horde of the Dragon Queen once again, with a group of all new players except for one and Gijiro. At the time of writing this, that group is nearing Tiamat, having a great time, and I run another Curse of Strahd campaign. I'm still having a rough time with the dating side of things, and I haven't really gotten back to the person I was before meeting her. But I'm back to playing D&D and loving it. If you made it to the end, thanks for reading this. And to my listeners, thank you for listening. This was a really heartfelt story, and I'm sorry how this went down, OP. In the comments and edits, OP goes on to describe how his girlfriend was the one who suggested picking the rogue class in the first place, and it wasn't a big deal in her mind how the damage and all that would work out. There's a big thing to note when it comes to expectations. Not every game of Dungeons & Dragons is going to be like a video game RPG where you're expecting to just mow down through lines of enemies. A lot of people, especially in 5th edition, are transitioning over to a more narrative style of gameplay. And in that style, what you can do outside of combat is just as important as what you can do within it. In some cases, in some narrative games, like a Powered by the Apocalypse game, PBTA, for those familiar, your narrative tools and the things you can do outside of combat are most of your tools. It seems in this game, the DM wanted to focus on a lot more of these narrative styles of how you interact with the people and interact with the mechanics of the game, whereas his girlfriend was, if you're unfamiliar with the term, a murder hobo. Someone who just wants to murder for the sake of murdering, just because. Well, anyway, that's the video, and those are my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know in the comments below on any further insights you have in dealing with your own murder hobos and how you solved it. And if you ever bring someone home from an anime convention, make sure she's a waifu and that she doesn't have a knifeu. Catch you guys in the next one, as the crow flies.